Okay, it's TQ here,
Marilyn Monroe.
and we recently had a chance of watching Black Adam at a pre-screening, and we have quite a few thoughts on it.
Yes.
Yeah, so overall, well, how would you say you like the film?
I wasn't crazy about it. I
Oh
won't lie.
wow.
I wasn't crazy about it. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed watching
Uh-huh.
um, you know, Black Adam. I'm not familiar with I'm a Marvel fan, so I'm not really
Uh,
familiar with DC. The only DC I know is Batman and Superman.
yeah.
But I did enjoy it. But I just felt they could have toned it down a little.
You felt it did too much.
Yes, I felt
Yeah.
they did a little bit too much. But overall, I did enjoy.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that one. I do feel that it could have benefited from slowing down just a little bit. It doesn't even give you some time to breathe, catch your breath.
No.
And it seems more concerned with spectacle than story. The story is there is a story, but I think the story kind of takes a back seat to the action, which kind of does the movie a disservice as far as making it something profound.
That stays with you.
Yeah. Instead, it's just a typical Dwayne the Rock Johnson film where it's just wall to
Yes.
wall
It's like action,
action.
action, action.
Yeah.
And like with Marvel, you actually kind of, have a whole storyline. Whereas I feel like this one, they didn't even build the storyline
Mhm.
like the other films would.
Yeah.
I just felt like there was a lot of action, which I mean, we do go watch action movies for that, but also, there was no story behind it. There was a story, but not a strong one.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like the story wasn't terrible as such. I felt that if they actually spent more time building the story, they could have had something really solid there. Especially the backstory of Black Adam as a character. When we first meet him, he's this really intimidating, very intense, brooding guy. But then you learn his tragic backstory, and it turns into a more sympathetic character. And
Yes.
I feel that leveraged properly, they could have made for a very compelling story. It could have made for something really unique within the DC universe because so far we haven't really seen a character quite like Black Adam in the DCEU. He's almost like the anti-Superman. He's like Superman if Superman didn't have a moral code. Because even though he is human in the film, he's basically a god, and he's not really a human being anymore, and he has a hard time reacclimating to being in a society and walking through doors.
Yeah, no, he struggled with the door thing. Like until the film ended. He never left the
Yeah,
door.
yeah, he was just not about doors at all.
Not at all. But there was a point in the film where I thought the film was over when they took him down to what's
to
that
the
place?
the Task Force X black
Yes,
site.
the black side. When they took
Yeah.
him there, I'm like, oh, that's it. And then the action started again.
Yeah, because we still had to introduce the whole Sabak arc, and
Who's that back, guys?
it's Sabak. Yeah, I'm not crazy about Sabak myself. He's definitely like the weakest part of the film. He kind of feels like they just shoved him in there at the last
Yeah,
bit.
because it was 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, he's very underwhelming as a villain, and he feels like a those old Power Rangers villains from from the
He actually
90s.
looks like that. There's a Power Ranger, not Power Puffs. Do you know the Power Puffs?
Oh
There's that
yes,
red.
he does actually. I know you talk about. I can't remember the
I
name,
can't
but he does
remember
look
the name.
like that
He
dude.
does look like that guy. Oh wow.
That's a good point. But yeah, I wish they did more with the villain because me personally, I love villains, right? I think villains are. Or there's a saying that a movie is only as interesting as its villain, or is it a hero is only as interesting as his villain? Something like that. Um, and I totally agree. If you look at the Dark Knight, with the Dark Knight, you have Joker, who's this really, electrifying, terrifying villain. And the whole thing that makes it so interesting is watching that battle of ideologies, between these two opposing forces. Same thing with Infinity War. Infinity War is so great because Thanos is such a compelling villain. So with this, I feel like, especially when you have a character like Black Adam, who is so imposing, and so intriguing, it really would have benefited in having a villain that is every bit as imposing or more so and more compelling than Black Adam himself, of which the villain was marginally maybe more powerful than Black Adam, but in terms of being compelling, or interesting in any way,
He
shape, or
wasn't.
form, he really wasn't. He's one of the most forgettable DC villains we've seen since Enchantress and that god awful Suicide Squad movie. But yeah. That being said, right, just to kind of backtrack a little bit. So the story goes that the Black Adam movie went through 15 years of development hell of Dwayne The Rock Johnson trying to get it made.
Wow.
So we're seeing a project that is 15 years in the making. And the thing with that is you can kind of tell in the way that the film feels a bit outdated in terms of its storytelling. A lot of it feels like stuff that we've seen before, like that whole plot device of having like a portal to unleash the underworld or some other realm and a
Yes.
beam that goes up to the sky. We've seen that in so many superhero
Yes,
movies now.
actually, when you mention it.
Exactly. And that's the thing with Black Adam is like a lot of it you watch and you're like, we've seen this. Like that plane that comes out of the ground is like, that's X-Men. We've seen that before in the X-Men movies. So it feels like a mishmash of all these different superhero movies from the past 20 years
Put
as
together.
put together, as opposed to just kind of being its own thing and introducing new concepts and things that we haven't seen before. It doesn't really try to push the envelope creatively, especially when it comes to the action set pieces, which in and of themselves they look great, but they do evoke like Zack Snyder a lot. So even that can't really be said to be very original. We've seen similar type of aesthetics in, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Those scenes in the past very clearly evoke like 300. So there's very little in the film that feels unique, outside of the Black Adam character himself, in terms of the visuals, in terms of the action. It all feels like something that we've
That
seen
has been
before
done.
somewhere else, so that is another major critique for me of the
Yeah.
film, is that it really does feel like it doesn't try anything really new, for the most part.
But what did you like about it?
So I loved A lot of the characters. I've already mentioned Black Adam.
He was great,
Yeah,
actually.
he was. The Rock really surprised me
Yeah, he did
in
well.
that performance. He really nailed the character. Um, I liked most of the Justice Society. I liked Doctor Fate. I liked Hawkman. I liked Atom Smasher. I wasn't so crazy about Cyclone. Cyclone is, yeah, I feel like she's the weakest character on that roster. They did try to introduce some backstory about her being kidnapped and having nanobots injected into her. But as far as, a person, she still feels a bit
Very
underdeveloped.
flat.
Yeah, she's kind of flat. Adam Smasher was great. The thing with the Justice Society in the film is that we're never really given much of a backstory as to who they are, how they, came to be, why they exist, how they differ from the Justice League, etc., etc. It's just there, and even with the characters within the team, we don't get a lot of backstory on any of them. It's just a few tidbits of information here and there. But really, we don't really see a whole lot of backstory. We don't know how Hawkman gets that armor of his. We don't know where Kent got that helmet from. We saw that Adam Smasher got those hand me downs
Yeah, from his
from his uncle.
uncle.
So that we know, and we know of Cyclo getting the nanobots injected into her, or whatever that gave her powers. But over and above that, we don't know an awful lot about the backstory of these characters because it's just one movie, and they can only do so much as far as establishing these characters. So it feels a bit like watching an Avengers movie without all the other movies that led up to it.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
like for someone like me, that doesn't know these characters, it was like I'm just seeing new superheroes that I
Yeah.
know nothing about, and I'm like, okay, but how did they get their powers?
Yeah.
Like Doctor Fate felt a lot like Doctor Strange to me.
Naturally. And I knew that a lot of people would say that, and it's only fair that people would think that if you are not familiar with the comics and you've never seen Dr. Fate before, you'll only naturally assume that he must be some cheap knockoff of Doctor Strange, when it's kind of the other way around. But that being said, like, I feel like in the movie, they don't really allow Dr. Fate to be his own person. He feels a lot like his abilities in the film are very heavily inspired by Doctor Strange's abilities, which just aggravates the whole thing of making him feel like a knockoff, when he's actually his own thing. And like, I feel like in the film, they didn't really do justice to his abilities. I'm okay with movies making changes to power scale. Okay. So if a character is absurdly powerful in the comics and you tone him down in the film so that there's actually some stakes, and you're able to actually create a threat for this person, that I'm okay with. But I feel like in terms of how his abilities are portrayed, they don't feel like he has a power set that is very different to Doctor Strange's power set. And that's not necessarily true if you've seen Black Adam in comics or in any of the DC animated series like Young Justice, where he appears quite a bit. You will know that his powers actually, have their own look and style that is distinctly different from Doctor Strange. Like he does a lot of conjurings with the Ankh symbol, the Egyptian Ankh symbol and stuff. And none of that is incorporated in the film, which could have actually helped to kind of set him apart. So he doesn't just look like some blue Doctor Strange knockoff. Nonetheless, you have to admit he's a pretty cool character. His suit looks great. I really love Pierce Brosnan as that character. He really
Yeah.
nailed it. He's very charismatic. He's very easy to like. Um, Adam Smasher, yeah, no, not Adam Smasher. Hawkman is another one that I kind of liked, though I do feel that he could have done with a bit more backstory. With him, there's just too much that we're expected to just take.
Yes.
There's so many questions around Hawkman, and it is kind of unreasonable to expect an audience to just swallow all of that without a little bit more backstory as to who is this man exactly, how powerful is he exactly, and why is he that powerful. We see him go toe to toe with Black Adam a couple times, and even though he doesn't come out on top, he does better than you would expect a regular human being to come out on top against a guy like Black Adam if you are unfamiliar with these characters. So I feel that he, if any of the characters on the Justice Society, deserved more backstory. I would say definitely him. I don't know what do you think.
Yeah, no, I don't know how he got his powers. I don't know if he is similar to Iron Man because he's got a lot of money.
Yeah.
And did he make that suit himself, or did he get some powers somehow?
Yeah, the truth of it is that, Hawkman's backstory is actually quite long and complicated. And that might be why they just chose to ignore it altogether.
Maybe they'll give us a Hawkman.
Hey, I'm game for Hawkman movie. He was cool. I wouldn't mind that. Actually, I feel that maybe a Justice Society movie would be nice. I'm not sure if we'll get one, but we'll see.
Dwayne was talking about phases. That's fine.
He was phase one and such, and so who knows what he has in mind. I wouldn't put it past him. Plus, there was all this talk about a team. We make a great team and so on and so forth. And in the comics, Black Adam does become a member of the Justice Society for a little bit. They eventually fall out because I guess they get tired of him killing people all the time. But
I don't mind that.
Yeah. So I think you don't mind him being on the team, you don't mind the killing.
I don't mind him killing.
Uh-oh. No, I don't either. If I'm being honest. But like the thing is, yeah, the Justice Society movie would be cool. It does suck that they killed off Dr. Fate so soon. But the thing is with Dr. Fate is, it's one of those roles that are passed on. So it'll
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's gonna go to I can't remember his name right now.
Because they said the helmet chooses.
Yeah, it does.
So I was actually gonna ask if is there ever going to be another one?
Yeah, there's quite a few of them. Yeah, so probably see the new iteration if there's another Justice Society film or if they make like a standalone Dr. Fate movie.
Yeah, you never know. Eh?
Yeah, it's possible. I think it's not entirely unreasonable. It might be part of Dwayne's phase one.
I mean, it will be fun to see a DC phase one, phase two type of thing.
It would. I'm curious to see what items, would pop up. I'm sure Superman would be top of the list. We've been waiting for Man of Steel 2. It looks like it's finally going to happen after like 50 years of waiting. Fortunately, Henry Cavill still looks the same. That man isn't human.
He's not.
He literally isn't. He might actually be a Kryptonian in real life. So there's that. I don't know whether Batman of Batfleck is going to return.
I don't like Batman.
You and Batman. I still need to convert you to the Church of Batman.
I don't like Batman, guys.
But yeah, and Green Lantern, that's something else that, us DC nerds I've been waiting for a while. The live action Batman, Green Lantern film. So who knows? We'll see how it goes. But I feel like coming out of the film, however you felt about the movie, it does give this sense of like renewed hope for the
For DC.
DCEU because it was really on its last legs. It felt like, with movies getting cancelled left and right. And it just felt like it's the end of an era. And this film is just sort of like rejuvenated and breathed life, back into the franchise. So once again, curious to see what the future looks like for the DCEU.
Yeah, no, I think same. I think for me, as much as I'm a Marvel fan, DC was what introduced me to superheroes and stuff because I was never a comic book nerd. But I've always loved superhero movies. And I watched Superman and Batman, all of those, before I actually moved over to Marvel. But
Okay.
and kind of comparing the two, that's why I think I stuck with Marvel because they just made you excited to see the next film. Whereas with DC, it kind of fell flat. And I think coming out of Black Adam, after watching Black Adam, it kind of renewed hope that they are moving towards a better direction than they were before. Maybe tone down a little bit on the action, give more backstory. But yeah, overall, I think I really enjoyed the movie.
It's a fun movie.
It is. It's really fun. I wouldn't mind watching it again, but not 3 times though. Probably like twice. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
It was a great movie to watch, and just to see the action happening
Yeah.
was very fun. And the last that post credit scene was. I think everybody
Yes.
enjoyed the post credit
Oh my
scene.
gosh. The post credit scene was worth the price of admission alone. Like it was so satisfying to watch.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I suppose now we wait until the next installment to see where the story goes. Are we going to see Black Adam versus Superman? And what about Shazam? Is the other thing.
Who's Shazam?
Shazam from the Shazam movies.
Yeah, you know me. I've heard of Shazam, but I doubt I've watched it.
So you know how Black Adam says Shazam and he
Yes.
turns into a human, goes to sleep and stuff.
And then he says Shazam and he turns back into a
Yes.
god.
So there's a superhero who got his powers pretty much the same way from the same wizard that gave Black Adam his powers. And he's actually a kid. He's like, I think 12, 13 years old.
I think I have watched it.
The one with the red suit.
I'm just so bad with remembering.
Yeah, so in the comics, Shazam is actually Black Adam's arch nemesis.
Oh.
They're like Batman and the Joker, or yeah. So they're rivals essentially because they have almost the exact same power set and a very similar origin story. So it's kind of weird actually that we've had two Shazam movies and there's still no connection between Black Adam and Shazam, and it doesn't look like there's going to be one for quite some time. I read somewhere that this is actually intentional, that they don't actually plan on having the two interact anytime soon, which I find a very odd decision. But we'll see if they eventually, go head to head, because I really feel that they should, because the two are just
That's
they're part of the same mythology, basically. They're cut from the same cloth, so it doesn't really make much sense for me for them not to have a run in at some point or the other. But we'll see.
yeah, no, we'll see.
Yeah.
A rating.
My rating for Black Adam would be 6.5 out of 10.
I think I feel the same way.
Yeah.
It's not average, but it's not quite there.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, 6.5. I think it's worth the watch.
Mm.
I mean, if you're like me and you don't know any backstory of anything, you will enjoy the action and just seeing DC make a decent movie, guys. It's very enjoyable. But yeah, I think a 6.5.
Okay. Yeah, 6.5 it is. But yeah, that's our review for Black Adam. So I hope you guys do check it out.